today is safety, especially when using technology. So I've got two guests on with me today who are both going to be talking about using technology from two different perspectives. John Behrens, who's going to be talking about using technology from the perspective as a parent of children who are doing online learning. And then BJ Witte, who is going to be talking about using technology from the perspective as of an educator. So we kind of get to see both sides of the equation here, and they're both going to help us as parents learn how we can create a safe environment for our children as they not only do their online learning, but also as they just use the internet in general and have that online aspect of life. So to help us as parents have some best practices for that, and then also how we can make sure that they're staying safe as we do that. So I'm going to let them kind of just introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll get started. So John, can we start with you?
Sure. Yeah, so I am John Behrens, and I work in marketing at a small firm up in Green Bay, and have three kids who have all been affected like everybody else by the pandemic and had to do some online learning. And I have had the privilege to be able to work from home throughout all of that. And so kind of working through the unique challenges and such of working side by side at the dining room table, helping with online learning and feeling my way around my own remote working situation. So
cool. Sounds good. Thanks, John. BJ?
Yeah, hi, I'm BJ Witte. I teach at Riverview Lutheran School here in Appleton. I've taught here this is year number 13. I've taught everything from grades 1 through 8. I also serve as our technology coordinator. And during the pandemic in the spring, we kind of got thrust into this idea of online learning. And even now today, trying to kind of map our virtual curriculum for students who have to either quarantine or are choosing an online virtual option. So a lot of new stuff for all of us, but I'm excited to share some thoughts.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, that's kind of a good way to describe it, like just getting thrust into it. I mean, who would have thought, right, that that last year, like this would have been our new norm, and yet here we are. And I think as a parent, my 4K student, she's doing online learning too, and in so many ways, we're kind of just navigating each step of this as it comes to us. So that's why I'm excited to have this discussion a little bit. And if you're a parent watching this too, we'd love to hear kind of from you. Maybe you could write in the comments below this video, what are some of the things that you're doing at your house as far as best practices to keep your children safe. So stepping out into the online world, it kind of sounds like a bad setup for a movie or something. But the truth is there are certainly a lot of threats out there. Maybe BJ, from the perspective as someone who works professionally in technology, what are some of those threats that we as parents need to be aware of as our children are every single day working online, both for schooling and for just personal use?
I'd say the biggest threat is just keeping the personal information private. We try to educate our students, never share first and last names, never share your address with anyone, because these kids interact with a lot of people over the internet, whether it's through gaming or chatting, or even now through schooling, to make sure that they know who they're talking to on the other end and know who they can share information with and when not to share information. That's kind of a big thing, is just the people that they're going to encounter just casually through the internet, because it is going to happen, whether it's through social media or online gaming. So make sure you know who your child is talking to, and that they're not sharing too much of who they are and where they are.
Cool. Yeah, good tips. I know a lot of the apps that like are provided by the school and stuff, I'm guessing have kind of built-in safeguards against any of that kind of stuff, right? Where you can't really access.
Yeah, depending on the school, most devices are going to be managed by the school, and they will have some safeguards in place. But just kind of keep in mind that every filter no filter is perfect. And so hopefully most of whether it's the Appleton Area School District or a different school, that they have those safeguards in place, which they should. So I
Yeah,
think we can take a little bit of a breather on that. So
yeah. But then those two big areas you talked about, social media and online gaming, are kind of, you're not in those safeguards anymore. So that's when it comes up to a parent to really help with that. Yeah. Cool. I guess, yeah, we kind of talked about some of the ways we can safeguard against that too then. So, John, how about from a parent's perspective? Maybe not necessarily dangers, unless you have any thoughts on that too, threats that come online, but maybe what about just other challenges to virtual learning that you've experienced as a parent?
Yeah, yeah. For us, it was a bit of a transition because, and this may be we may be weird, but we haven't really let our kids use devices much at all, um, except like, here, you can play a game on my phone for a little while or something. So to suddenly go from not really much device usage to being online all the time, um, you realize pretty quickly that, oh no, like the whole internet is now open to my kids, and I have to figure out what to do about this. Um, so yeah, you talk about dangers, and it's both like the big obvious dangers and the small things that, there's a million different things that your kids could stumble across just because they're trying to search for some information on
Yeah.
Google or something, and so um, it was something that we hadn't honestly thought about a ton, or hadn't really like put rules in place in advance too much. And then suddenly you get to that point and you realize, I need to think about this. And then there's just the learning curve too, that especially with younger kids, it's pretty intuitive for kids to figure out how a touch screen works, but to be able to understand the way the interface works and understand where to find their assignments, and how to do those things and how to turn things in, there's certainly a lot of learning we all had to do together.
Mhm.
So I guess the more you can be involved in that, and the more you can figure it out for yourself so that you can help. I mean, it's hard enough helping kids with math when you get to a certain age, and then you have to help them use the tablet too. So that's been our experience, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you were just talking about how easy it is to just go into Google and you're searching for information. And I know just earlier today, my daughter was typing Netflix in the Google search bar so she could like watch some show or something, right? And it just hit me like she is one misspelling away from just a whole world of bad stuff out there, and it's kind of scary. So um, yeah, definitely that parental oversight and involvement is a big thing. Um, yeah. How about for the virtual schooling itself? I mean, you kind of talked about some of the transition there, John, of um, learning how the interface works. And I remember watching my daughter trying to learn how a computer mouse worked, and just that like hand-eye coordination of a mouse that we take for granted. And maybe computer mice are kind of outdated now. Maybe I'm aging myself, but beyond that interface, just the whole environment of online learning is so different too. So I'd be kind of curious what both of you have as far as recommendations of how to overcome some of those obstacles environmentally to that online learning and the distractions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. That it's so we had a situation where we had everybody within a pretty close proximity, which can be a good thing and can also be not a great thing. So there's just practical considerations of can you set up a space that's dedicated to schooling while it's remote school? Um, and if you can, great. If you can get some separation, if you've got multiple kids, that's always helpful, especially if you've got multiple Zoom meetings going on at the same time. Um, we didn't always have that ability to really get some good separation, and it was fine. But aside from that, I think just being able to sort of structure the day was helpful. Some of our kids had a Zoom call at a certain time every day, or this time and this time or whatever, and they knew when to expect the assignments. The school did a really good job of having a lot of structure around it. But then in terms of at home, being able to say, it's just like school. You're not allowed to watch TV in the morning. You have to get up. You have to get ready. You have to, check your assignments. You have to do your work. And then when everything is done, probably we generally made them read some more too. And then you can go play, or you can do this thing. And making sure not to get too lax on, what they're doing when. And, I don't want them playing games when they should be doing math and those kinds of things, which are, having those boundaries can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I know my daughter really just looks forward to that scheduled morning meeting with Miss Erin every single morning where she gets to log in and have that. So, and even though there's the option to watch it later, I know it's kind of cool to have it live for her. So I think that's super important, that schedule there. BJ, you got any thoughts from the educator perspective about kind of environment for that online learning?
Yeah, kind of building off a little bit what John said. If you have the ability to set up a dedicated learning space, that's probably your best option. Um, and like you said too, make sure there's a routine. Make sure it feels as much like school as possible. I know we actually have policies in place that if you are learning virtually, you need to be dressed. You no, not from your, don't be from your bedroom or your bed. Be in a public space, be in a dedicated area. No pets on camera and things like that. And there are two different big things, like whether you're learning synchronously with the classroom, so like you're on at the exact same time as the teacher, or if it's asynchronous, you're like looking at lessons and then doing it later. Those are things to think about too. Because if you have the ability to do asynchronous learning, make sure that the kids are taking breaks. Because looking at a screen for hours upon hours is not good for us. So that they're able to take breaks is a good idea. So
Very cool. Yeah, the dedicated space, and that dedicated space doesn't necessarily have to be like a whole room just for learning. It can be a desk in a corner that's got kind of the stuff you need, right? Or even in just an area that is designated as the school space. One of the cool things we've got here at our Shepherd is that virtual learning classroom that we've set up that I know a lot of our parents have been taking advantage of, where we have a lot of those dedicated spaces where the kids, there's multiple children in the same room, and yet they all have their own workspace that gives them the ability to kind of zero in and do that learning like that too. So one other plug I'm going to make for our Shepherd stuff here too, because John, you had talked about that schedule and how important that is for learning. One of the things that we've been putting out on the Our Shepherd Facebook page at least 3 or 4 times a week is different like children's content that can be really cool, kind of supplemental stuff to schedule into a child's day, whether that's watching a Bible story with Miss Mora or doing some song time with me when we have jamming with Pastor Zach or whatever it is. We've kind of designed that to be supplemental stuff that a parent can add into the daily schedule for their children. And we just started one more too with our online power hour, where we have a whole program for young children designed with videos and crafts and stuff like that they can plug into it. So yeah, scheduling, super important.
Yeah. And I just want to, if I can jump back in real quick to piggyback on something that DJ said, that the idea of taking breaks and then giving your kids breaks, letting them be kids a little bit. I think is pretty important too, because it can also be really tempting as a parent to not have the patience to let them work through something the way they need to. Like you just want to get them to power through all their schoolwork and then be done by 9:30 and let them go and then just worry about your stuff. But allowing them to, within reason and to whatever degree you need to, work at their pace and get their stuff done, but also, give them a little bit of recess time or something, in between. If it's a really heavy workload kind of day, that can be really helpful too, because, if you're just being a taskmaster or something, that's not really going to turn out well for anybody either.
Cool. Yeah. You know how difficult it is even as a parent to just, in your job or whatever it is you do, to just muscle through stuff nonstop. So definitely taking breaks. We all need breaks. So, well, we've talked a little bit about how we can make online schooling as effective as we can. Obviously, it's not necessarily ideal, right? I mean, I think most of us, and I shouldn't say that absolutely, but most of us would probably wish we could all do in person, and different schools are doing different things right now, whether that is in person or online or some hybrid of the two. But any other kind of just last tips for parents that we can make online learning as effective as possible?
I would say making sure that you're eliminating as many distractions as possible from home. Um, that goes back to that dedicated workspace, but also if you are a parent at home, or if you're like a babysitter or a nanny or something, that you're not providing extra distractions. So maybe you're working from home yourself, and so it says, okay, this is work time. But if, just for instance, if your child is at the table and they're working, and then they see you watching a TV show or something, they might want to join into that watching that TV show or that something on Netflix. Just like, okay, I'm gonna maybe read a book instead. So something that maybe won't distract them actively is something to think about.
Cool. Good advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And the tough thing, of course, is like the distractions that are like built into the device. And so I guess just if you're able to be there with your kids, which I mean, thankfully I have been able to be there with the kids, but just remember to pay attention, remember to be engaged, remember to talk to your kids and ask them about what they're learning and things like that, so you can so you don't get in those situations, which do happen, where like suddenly you come out of a meeting of your own and you see that your kid is playing video games instead of doing their homework. But
It
as
never
much as
happens, does
possible,
it?
no, of course not. But yeah, as much as possible, just and that's just a general thing. That's a general internet safety thing too, is be engaged in your kids' lives and talk to them and have conversations and know what they're up to. All of those things that you've probably heard a million times, but it's really important, and your kids want to know that you care about what's going on in their lives. So it's a good thing all around.
Yeah, I think having them being engaged in that is so huge. And even, like we set up our kind of family computer in a very public space. And granted, my children are pretty young right now, so they don't have their own devices yet. But if one day we finally allow them to, there's definitely going to be those guidelines to be using them in a public space, and limitations on what devices they're bringing into their bedrooms and that kind of stuff too. Just because, I mean, kind of like what we started out saying, what BJ was talking about, all those threats online, especially in social media, which is such a big part of so many people's life. So, yeah. Okay, so here's my final question, and I'm going to give BJ a chance right now as a teacher to dish it out to us, and I want you to tell us as an educator, what do you wish parents would do more of with their children in online learning, or what do you wish they would do less of?
I would say what I would like to see parents do more of is being active in their learning. And this has to do with not even online learning, just in general. Asking your child, well, hey, what did you learn today? Or what was the best thing? What are something you're working on in social studies or science? But to be an active part in your child's education, and maybe you have some life experience that you could share that could tag on to a lesson. Um, so yeah, be an active participant, because teachers are going to do their best, and this is not an ideal situation. Um, Most teachers have not been trained for it, but we are doing our best to learn to. Um, but so it's going to take a village, so to speak. So be an active participant.
Cool. Good. Yeah. Super good encouragement. And we've kind of had that theme going on throughout here. Be active. You know, you think about that job of parenting, which is really a role that God's given to parents. And as such, you know, no matter what programming our children are participating in or what schools they're attending or what classes, ultimately, we as parents are responsible for them. And we can't just say, you know, well, they're plugged into school time now, so it's the teacher's responsibility and it's not on me. It is, right? We are responsible for that. And that's a huge burden, like, and a huge source of guilt for a lot of us, right? But that's why we have Jesus. He forgives us. He forgives us and he gives us that encouragement, and we go out and we do the best we can. And maybe I'm going to play the stereotypical pastor card here and just say that's why it's so important to keep Jesus in the homes too, to remind our children, as much as we know it, that that they're forgiven and that they're loved by Jesus, and that even though we're not perfect parents, we still love them. And in Jesus' forgiveness, we have that sense of value that is worth more than anything else, that we belong to him. And so we try our best, and we try again the next day. So, well, cool. Thank you guys very much for being part of this conversation here, talking a little bit about how to use technology safely. Even if we weren't in the middle of this pandemic, it would be a very timely conversation, but I think certainly right now, even more so. So this is the first of our 4 safety talks here. We've got 3 more scheduled this month where we're going to be talking about physical safety, and then mental safety and emotional safety, bringing in new experts each week. So if you're watching this and you found this discussion to be beneficial or thought-provoking, feel free to share it with someone that you think might enjoy it, and make sure that you stay tuned for future parent talks here too. So thanks, John. Thanks, BJ, for being part of this.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all next time.